Welcome to another Saturday night and taking it to the nub. I'm your host, Boston Jimmie, and tonight I have a gentleman on that I met probably a year or so ago, relatively new company with a lot of roots back to the early days in the Dominican Republic through his grandfather. His name is Juan Lugo, and he is the co-founder of Don Doroteo Cigars. So when we bring in Juan, there's going to be a lot to talk about. He's got a lot of things going on. His hands are in a lot of different pots. But I'm going to tell you, this man is just chiming away, making cool stuff happen. But before we do that, let us take a short commercial break, and we will listen to our sponsors.
And today's show is brought to you by Casa Cuevas Cigars. In the 19th century, Juan Cuevas, Spanish immigrant from Santander, began what was to be a family business which now spans 4 generations. Like others fortunate enough to live and work in Pinar del Rio province of Cuba, Juan commenced cultivating tobacco, turning it into a successful business. Following in his father's footsteps, his son Juan Jr. continued with the family business, successfully expanding it until events which took place in 1959 forced a dramatic change. Years later, in the Ciabo Valley of the Dominican Republic, Luis Cuevas Sr., Juan Jr.'s son, carried on the family tradition of handcrafting fine cigars in the family's cigar factory, Tabacalera Las Lavas. Today, Luis Sr. is joined by his son Luis Jr. in the manufacturing and sale of premium long filler cigars at their factory, Tabacalera Las Lavas in Santiago, Dominican Republic. So check out Casa Cuevas Cigars at www.casacuevascigars.com and on their Instagram and Facebook channels.
All right, let's bring Juan in. I want to thank our sponsors who without them, this show is always a little harder to do. Juan, did you get the brew?
Yes, sir. Got my whole flight here.
All
Ready for
right.
you, dog.
There we go. There we go. There we go. Fantastic. So we spoke, like I said, about a year more or so ago when you first kind of launched your brand. Okay. And it was this big thing. And I think it was at TPE. It was like, who's this company? You were dragging people in as hard as you could, right off the floor. Come on in. I want to tell you about this. I want to tell you about this. And you have such a great story about the company itself, the history of the family in the cigar and tobacco business. But before we get there, I didn't realize then, but I do now, that A, you're a Yankee fan, and that's no problem. But you grew up in New York, as did I.
Yep.
Where in New York did you grow up?
So I'm actually from Washington Heights, and for those viewers that don't know, that's just a little bit north of Harlem. That's in Manhattan. So we used to go to the South Bronx, go see the Yankees play. And actually, a little quick one for you that you'll like. My first memory going to Yankee Stadium, my dad took me to the bleachers, and this was back in the '90s, and I was like about 6 or 7 years old. And the reason I remember this experience is because he put a Boston hat on me because it was a really sunny day. He put a Red Sox hat on me, so you already know what happened when we go to the bleachers in Yankee Stadium back in the '90s during the rivalry days. It was pretty bad. My dad almost got in a fight. It was pretty awesome.
So right, the first time I actually started to become a Red Sox fan, before I did that, I was actually walked into Fenway with a Yankee hat on. They weren't
Mm.
even playing the Yankees, and I told my newfound friends, I said, "No, take that hat off." They said, "No, no, I'm taking the Yankee hat off. Screw you." And after about 3 or 4 more visits to Fenway, I began to appreciate the fan base, and I began to appreciate the team and history. And I thought I was
Hmm.
going to be living in Boston the rest of my life, so I kind of donned the Red Sox hat on, came back to New York. Everybody made fun of me, called me Boston Jimmy, and here I am. No, I guess I make money on the name now.
Hey, yeah, you leverage it. That's awesome.
That's
But
how
it's
it
cool.
goes.
It's cool that you mentioned that about Boston Red Sox. They do have like a really cool culture to them, and just like, I mean, obviously, times changed and whatnot, but that whole legacy that they had for a minute there. Obviously, I'm biased because I'm Dominican, but when they had Big Papi and they had Pedro Martinez and all these other guys, it was it was pretty sweet times, man. Especially when they used to, go up against the Yankees, and eventually they did fight, but obviously, yeah, the Boston's killing it lately, man. The Yankees they've been not holding up to the legacy, but it's all good.
Yankees haven't won a World Series. I think they only have one World Series in the 21st century. So it's you gotta got a lot of catching up to do on 21st century rings. We still got a lot of
Yeah,
20th century rings, so I'll give you that. But
right.
the game's completely different now.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
a lot of
But
rule changes and
that whole
stupidity.
piece about Boston really reminds me, kind of like what you're saying. It seems to me like you really appreciate, you know, uh, legacy and history. Even like the beer you're drinking right now. If you want to tell the viewers, you were telling me off
Yeah,
off the
yeah.
air.
So I'm just drinking a nice icy cold Yingling Lager, the oldest brewery in America. 1826, Pottsville, Pennsylvania. A lot of people they kind of rebirthed it back in the 80s, I think it was, or 90s. And
Mm.
nobody they heard the name and people thought it was a Chinese beer with the name Yingling. But then once they learned, it's like this is like been around for a very long time.
That's legacy
It's
right there.
very drinkable. It's an extremely
Yeah,
drinkable beer,
it's a proper drink to pair with our legado, which is the
which
legacy
is
itself.
exactly what I'm pairing it with. My 92 rated Legato. Um, I really enjoyed this cigar. I'm enjoying it again right now. If you haven't read the review on this one, go out on Stogie Press, go to the cigar review page, look up Don Doroteo, and you'll see the 92. And your most recent one,
Hmm.
Salt of the Earth, and there's two of them. I did one of them. That's just off the rails. That I don't know what you did with that, but keep doing that. That's all I can say. Just keep doing that, and you are going to take this industry by storm.
It's pretty funny what the amazing the things you can do when you sprinkle a little bit of fear into your creative juices. So the fear I had was, okay, I don't want to be a one hit wonder. I don't want to come into this industry with a legacy stick. So you're holding a 14-year-old, well now 15, but at the time when I released it, it was a 14-year-old blend. That thing was rolled and blended by the master blender Manoli Noah in 2008, which by the way was the same year I was walking, getting cap and gown in high school. So needless to say, I have no rights to claim that cigar. But he bestowed that on us and our company, and I'm forever grateful because of my grandfather's legacy and his dedication to La Aurora over the decades. My grandfather worked with them since 1936, so rightfully so. You got to give the man his roses. But yeah, the salt of the earth. I went into that process with the master blender for about a year and a half, and the reason we took so long was because I kept thinking to myself, like, man, if I come, if I come to PCA and I debut our first core line, something I actually touched and worked with side by side with the master blender, and it's a fluke, there goes the brand. So I think that fear drove me to make sure that we didn't cut any corners, especially when it comes to these strains of tobacco. One of the things that I really want to kind of relate to your viewers, and I always do this at the shows. When I'm trying to educate folks at the booth, is that when it comes to blending cigars, the strains of tobacco you use obviously are important because those are the ingredients. It's like a chef, right? With the ingredients he's
Mm-hmm.
using to cook. One thing that a lot of folks do from a business standpoint, which is wise from a business standpoint, but not so much from a brand building perspective, which is what I really care about. And it's using high quality product. So I don't cut corners. I don't use cheap shit. Sorry if this is a PG-13
No,
viewership here,
not made for kids.
but
You can use any word you want to describe your product in your own special way.
awesome. Okay, cool. Well, I cuss like a sailor. I'm a veteran, so I get that right. We all of our tobacco in the salt of the earth is aged 7 years, and we were very, very careful as far as like curating which classifications of tobacco we wanted to use for this blend. And I'll say this much. The margins on that cigar, on the salt of the earth, both blends are pretty thin, and the reason for that is because we didn't want to cut corners. We could have said, you know what, let's cushion this up a bit more and just kind of rake it in. And like I told you off air, my partner and I met in the investment world. We come from that world, so we're not in this industry to like, hey, let's go ahead and make a bag real quick and run to the Caribbean and call it a day. We're not here for that. We're here to, like you said earlier, really shake things up and make some noise and do something cool, man. Just do something different. There's enough of that in this industry. There are folks that, not to put anyone down, but there are folks that, they just, those thoughts about survival, because when you're in a startup, you gotta survive. You gotta pay the bills, keep the lights on. Those thoughts of survival kind of they dilute and dampen folks' creativity and their ability to take risks. And so when I blended Salt of the Earth, we took risks. And the biggest one was we leveraged a strain of tobacco in the filler called Andullo, which you're familiar with, but a lot of folks in the industry actually don't know what Andullo is. And it was so awesome having one at the show. I had a 6 foot tall, just as tall as me, this big old tobacco. And folks were just, like, what is this? And I'm like, oh, I thought you were in the industry for 40 years. And come to find out, they didn't know what Andullo was. And the risk that we took with that is that typically it's been labeled, quote unquote, the common man's or the poor man's tobacco in the Dominican Republic. It's not highly regarded in the Dominican Republic. It is part of our DNA, right? But it's usually used as chewing tobacco or as pipe tobacco, and it has been for over 500 years. So it's kind of like
it's the original Taino Indian crop. That's what
yes.
If Columbus came in and saw you all making shit, that's what they would make. That's what they were doing. They were smoking that stuff.
Exactly, 100%. And over the years, folks have been trying to kind of veer off of that path. And I think that the awesome thing about our company that allows us to kind of think outside the box is that I am not, I'm Dominican, but I'm first generation American. I was raised in New York, and so was my cousin who runs the farm in the Dominican Republic. And so when we entered this industry, we have the legacy baked into our blood. We're fourth generation tobacco farmers, but I don't approach it from the same lens as somebody who was brought up and raised in the Dominican Republic, who grew up looking at Andullo like, oh, that's just, whatever. Right. I see it as like, oh, wait, this is not being leveraged enough. It's not being used properly. This is something that if we get right, we could make a big splash. And thankfully, according to you and some other folks, that's exactly what happens.
Well, yeah. Well, I think it's also, the Andullo, it obviously is important, but that doesn't. I mean, when I read through the blend, I'm sure that is not the primary ingredient. That's the sprinkle.
No.
Okay, that's the sprinkle. That's the sprinkle. But yes, like the one that I reviewed, which is the Piedra Viva. Okay, you took another risk, and you went with Cameroon. All right. Yes. Which is not an easy leaf to work with, both in blending and both in construction. Okay. Because it's a fragile leaf.
Yes.
It has if you over humidify, they tend to crack. Okay. They have issues. You can't tell you how many times I picked up a Cameroon and I was just completely like, yeah, come on, you didn't do it right, or you didn't get the right leaf to work with it from a flavor perspective, because it's sensitive. It's it doesn't want to be touched by everything. So that was an amazing blend.
Yeah. So you bring up a good point about the wrapper, right? So this is where taking that risk comes into play. And by nature, I come from the investment world, and in that world, I am high leverage, baby. I'm all on black. So I kind of apply the same mindset to the cigar world. So when I'm working with Manolo Noah, the master blender, you know, the conversation comes up and we're like, maybe we should use San Andreas and this and that. And to appease him, I was like, let's go ahead and do them all. Do them all. Because I knew already in my head, I was like, I'm not going to want San Andreas, but let's go ahead and do it just because I want to, you never overstep the master, so to speak, right? And I knew that he was really set on doing that. So I said, let's go ahead and let's make the San Andreas one and hold it up to the Cameroon, and then we'll hold it up to the Corojo, right? And so when it came down to it, there were two obviously that made the cut, and there was one
Cameroon
that just didn't hold up. Yep.
Yeah, that's
So,
it.
and the whole piece, you're absolutely right as far as like how delicate the Cameroon is. But that's honestly, again, that's where working with a factory that as old and as experienced as La Aurora, that's where that comes into play. These folks, I mean, if you've been there to the factory or seen any of the footage from the rolling rooms, like
Sure,
they have the game jam packed, so they know exactly what they're doing there. And I have the utmost faith that if I tell Manny, hey Manny, I would love to use X, Y, and Z, he could get it done. So
you got Manny with the arm over your shoulder helping you, which is really, really
absolutely, absolutely. And I think that the biggest and most important piece to this is like not trying to be the guy, right? So like when I go to the shows, if I'm doing like if I'm talking to anybody like I'm right now with you here, or privately or publicly, I always try to make sure that I step carefully. I'm never going to outshine a master blender who's been doing this longer than I've been alive. That's number one. Number two, like I am fortunate that my grandfather, has the legacy he has, and he passed it on to us. But all I could really do is try to honor that by kind of walking the same line he did. So like that's one of the reasons actually why we named the core line Salt of the Earth, was because of my grandfather. We believe that he was a salt of the earth man, and as such, we should do the same, right? And that's just kind of a reminder to us, kind of a cool little geeky thing. But yeah, when it comes to creating perfection, in my eyes, it takes a team, and it's not only just the master blender and the founders. It's when I go to the Dominican Republic and I'm going to finalize a blend, I bring out my creative director Jeff Moss, who's been smoking longer than I've been alive. So that I'm
I
gonna
was going to
respect that
ask
guy's
you
time.
when you actually started to pick up a cigar, having your grandfather in the business. I'm sure you were around it, but when did you actually really experience it?
I'll put it to you in two ways. So the first time I actually picked one up and attempted to smoke one, I was really young, because as you said, I was around it. It was always around me, and so I was a kind of a shithead, for like a better word. And I would at one time I found some of my grandfather's cigars in my closet, and so I kind of snagged them and try to hide them and waited for a good day after school. My mom's still at work, and try to light it outside the window. That didn't work out so well. I got in trouble for that one. But when I really picked one up and enjoyed it was, I would say, years later. I was already an adult. I was about 19 or 20 years old. I was in Iraq, my first deployment. And out
Thank you for your
there,
service then. Yes. So
thanks, brother. Thank you. Yeah, out there, man, it was a dry base. So meaning you can't drink. You can't enjoy a nice beer on a hot day. So the only two things you could do is smoke hookah or smoke cigars. At the time, I wasn't really acquainted with hookah. I was like, okay, what is this? Like, what is this? Is weed or whatever the case? Anyways, I don't want to get in trouble. So I said, I'll go with the Cubans. The embargo doesn't exist when you're at war. So we had access to Cuban cigars, and that was it. And I'm like, okay, cool. At the time, I didn't think anything of it, but obviously in hindsight, I'm like, man, how freaking awesome is that? And so, yeah, that's when I started smoking that. We would go once a week. That's our day off. We would work 6 days on, one day off. And so on those days off that we actually didn't have to work, we would go and hunker down in a bunker that was meant for protection whenever there's an attack. And we had some lawn chairs out there, and we would just smoke cigars, and that was my earliest memory when I really started to, indulge and enjoy the cigar life. And it really was, I found what now, obviously, in hindsight, because I'm in the industry, I see the camaraderie and how it brings people together of all walks. But like when I was in the military, it was a really great escape for us. It really kind of got us through the deployment. So
of course it does. You have to have something to relax you. Like you said, you can't drink any alcohol, so you're left to drinking tea, coffee, right? Smoking
there were
cigars.
there were two things, and they stuck to me to this day. And I am obsessed with both cigars and working out. Those are my only two vices. Those are the only two escapes that I had. And when I actually deployed, I was 140 pounds. I looked like
Wow.
Captain America, the before picture. And yeah, so it was pretty awesome, man, because there was a lot of growth from that. And obviously, look what came from it. So now
Yeah.
I'm in the industry and I'm carrying this legacy. So it's pretty cool.
So when we talked a little bit earlier, you had brought up another line that you are launching at PCA,
Yes,
which
sir.
is so let's talk a little bit about that. Pop that one on the screen if you have it.
So I'm actually excited to share this with you when I see you because I know you're a big fan of legacy and whatnot. So this is a 15-year-old blend. You see here. There you
Nah, look
go.
at this.
It's a 15-year-old blend, and it's called El Alcalde. El Alcalde translation is the mayor. So, and if you see on the band, you'll see it in person, but for your viewers at home, it says 1969 to 1971. So that's commemorating when my grandfather was actually nominated to be mayor of his town, and he was the mayor for those 3 years. And he didn't want to be the mayor, but they just nominated him because he was a natural leader in the community. He helped a lot of folks out, and yeah, it's just again paying homage. So the legacy lines, they're all going to be aged cigars. So you're smoking right now the 1936 El Legado. 1936 is commemorating when he started working with La Aurora at the age of 16. El Alcalde is going to be the one that follows. And there is another one. It's a 19-year-old that's currently sitting. It's going to age for 2 more years.
A
And I'm
19-year-old.
yes, 19-year-old cigar. It's a legal cigar, and we're going to release it in 2 years. So I'm going to age it for 2 more years. So 19 years age without cellophane. Okay. So for viewers at home, that's 19 years without no one touching it, no rings, no wrappers, no plastic, nothing. And we're gonna age it for another 2 years with cellophane, because I like to keep things exciting. So we're gonna alternate every year. Every year, I want to have something fresh and new at PCA. So we started off with the 14-year-old that you're smoking. Then we went to our core line, which we just talked about, Salt of the Earth. And then I'm going to alternate this year. I'm going to release the 15-year-old El Alcalde. And then next year, we'll release something special, something different that we've been working on. We're working on currently right now.
And
So
then you're
that
gonna
night,
have more four-line things
yes,
too, I'm sure, right?
yes, yeah. So every year we'll alternate. We'll do a core line and then we'll do a legacy stick. So
Well, that's what you got to plan and execute the plan. Now, since the time we spoke when you first launched, how has the business grown over the last, say, 2 years in the
it's been
industry, shops,
mhm.
things like that?
It's been great, man. So like all in all, amazing. On a day by day, chaotic. And when I say that, I mean in the best light. Like, I came into this with already. Thankfully, I had already experienced chaos in a growing company. So I've worked for companies in the past. For folks that don't know, I come from a investor and marketing background. I've always been kind of a geek when it comes to product marketing in the tech space. That brought me into the investment sector. I invested in technology as well with my co-founder Brandon. Um, and through there, I learned that in the chaos, as long as everyone in the team is going uphill at 110 miles per hour, it doesn't matter. You're on the right. You have the right trajectory. You're fine. And that's kind of like the same mindset that everybody in my team has right now. And we're starting to see the fruits of that labor, thankfully, in this very short amount of time, which is like mind-boggling. Um, just to put in perspective, just 3 weeks ago, I was in the Dominican Republic and I was hosting my first event at the farm. So I'm starting to do immersive experiences at the farm in Dominican Republic. It entails, going all throughout the country, doing all kinds of cool excursions for about 4 days. And then I take you to Santiago, the heart of tobacco in the Dominican Republic. I take you to Tamboril, where the factory is. I take you to Santiago, where our farm is located. And at the farm, I held my first dinner. So we do this high end experience where you get immersed into the culture. You're surrounded by tobacco, kind of similar to wine tasting in Napa Valley. So I lived in California for many years with my wife. She loves wine, and we would frequently go to wineries and just do wine tasting. So I wanted to bring that same kind of vibe and energy to the tobacco world in the Dominican Republic, and that's exactly what we did. And the crazy part is that all within 2 years, I've managed to entice some of the most prolific individuals in this industry to get on a plane and come to our farm and experience the Don D experience. And it's just humbling, to be honest, because
And
when we
that
first
is that is an amazing excursion with any
yeah.
factory, with any brand, to be able
Mhm.
to walk the fields, walk the processing facilities. Any consumer who has never done that, it's a highly recommended thing, no matter who does it. And if you've done it, it never gets old in a way, because there's always something new you learn in each one of these
Yeah,
tours.
and everybody does it different, right? So
Mm,
every company does it different. Does their processes are different. There might be some overlaps, but the culture of the company and the passion really comes through. Um, Anyways, man, it was amazing, and I'm just excited that here in a couple of weeks at PCA we're going to be debuting and opening that up to all the constituents of the industry. For the last couple of years, everybody, when they walk by our booth, they always look at the screens, they look at the monitors, and they see the harvest. They see me walking through the factory, rolling the cigars, all that good stuff. And they're like, man, I would love to go there. And that just stuck to me for years. And even though we're essentially like new compared to a lot of the other folks in the industry, I just thought to myself, like, I would love to be able to kind of really immerse people into what we're about. I already do that in a sense. If you've been to our shows, you have at TPE, right? But if anyone has been to our booth, I bring Andullo Tobacco to the Vegas booth. I bring a machete and I'm cutting it and I'm showing you exactly how our ancestors did it. I have pipes and I share them with people so they can smoke and really indulge. And I bring Mama Juana so they can really drink the our booch,
yeah,
right?
yeah, that's right. You
Yep.
brought the Mama Wama. That's
Yeah,
right.
yep. And so I thought, like, okay, now let's take it a step further. We're going to bring folks to the Dominican Republic and have that full experience. So that's the two things we're debuting at PCA this year is going to be the Alcalde, the 15-year, and then the tourism piece. So we're going to have a whole segment on that. It's going to be really exciting.
All right. Let's take another short break. This is 4 minutes. This is our last commercial break. When we come back, maybe we could dig a little more into the tourism aspect, and then we get some more topics I think we want to touch on based on where you are, what you're doing. So,
Right on.
so with that, let me introduce
And
our
today's
next.
show is brought to you by Bocock Brothers Cigars, a new and active brand founded by two Honduran brothers, Bryant and Douglas Bocock. The brand zeroes in on those folks that are looking for easy to smoke cigars inspired by unusual circumstances. Very importantly named after their very interesting and imitable last name, Bocock. Right now, Bocock Brothers is featuring their signature edition, made at the AJ Fernandez factory in Esteli, Nicaragua. It features an Ecuadorian Sumatra wrapper, a Nicaraguan Habano binder, and a Nicaraguan filler. Available in three popular formats, a Robusto, a Toro, and a Gordo. You can check out Bocock Brothers Cigars at www.bocockbrothers.com. And today's show is brought to you by Platinum Nova Cigars. Platinum Nova is a family owned and operated premium cigar company. Only the highest vintage tobacco and the most skilled hand workmanship go into the making of each Platinum Nova cigar. This results in a timeless blend of art and craftsmanship. The Nova brand and the family's work are a tribute and an honor to their grandfather to always remember him and his infinite passion for the finest cigars. Their love for cigars started with their grandfather, a dedicated master blender and entrepreneur in the cigar industry. So the next time you're looking for that exquisite cigar experience, pick up a Platinum Nova. You could check them out at Platinum Nova Cigars, www.novacigar.com, and on their Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter channels. This episode of Taking It to the Nub is sponsored by the Box Press Cigar app, the ultimate cigar smoking experience. With Box Pressed, you can easily catalog cigars with your own virtual humidor, quickly rate and record notes for any cigar using the Smoke Session feature, receive intelligent cigar recommendations based on your personal taste profile, and access exclusive discounts from top cigar brands. You can even shop your favorite cigars directly in the app, then automatically sync the order to your virtual humidor, plus so much more. Download Box Press today by typing bxpr.sd/install into any web browser and discover the world of cigars like never before. That's bxpr.sd/install. And today's show is brought to you by All Saints Cigars, a company founded in 2019 and headed up by industry veteran Mickey Pegg and his two friends, Martin Corboy, a successful restaurateur, and Frank Leo, an Air Force Academy graduate military veteran. As Mickey explains it, they were all sitting down, talking and smoking cigars, and finally they decided that they would do this thing together. It was time. Mickey said, "I decided if I'm going to work hard at it, it should be something I love. Besides, a tough day with a cigar is better than a great day doing anything else." Soon after, they began the process of launching All Saints Cigars, jokingly referring to themselves as the Holy Trinity: St. Michael, St. Martin, and St. Francis. They chose for their logo the cross of St. James, the patron saint of Nicaragua, the country where their cigars would be produced. You can check out All Saints Cigars at www.allsaintscigars.com.
Hey, let's get back to Juan. Look at this thing. This is, you wonder,
Beauty.
you wonder why I rate cigars like yours the way I do, because of that, not to mention the balanced flavors. This is a cigar, when people think of Dominican cigars, they tend to look at Dominican versus Honduran versus Nicaraguan, and everybody's, the populace here tends to gravitate more to the Nicaraguan, but there is so much good product coming out of the Dominican these days, because it's not this older Dominican type cigars that we were familiar with from 15 years ago. Everybody's starting to take leaf from outside of the Dominican, bringing it in and blending with things that are just as good. I mean, this cigar, I'll stand this cigar up against any Dominican cigar that's on the market. Okay, it's that good. What is your view on that as far as Dominican, Honduran, Nicaraguan? I mean, you use these tobaccos, but from
Absolutely.
a perspective.
So, yeah, I mean, you hit it right in the head. So similar to what I was saying earlier, when I go to blend a cigar with a master blender, we approach it from an international mindset, if that makes sense. I try to not stay clear of like puros and whatnot. I mean, for me, that's just ego. And I'm sorry for anybody that's doing that or a fan of that. I don't mean any offense, but at the end of the day, I really want to make great product. And from my lens, it's impossible to do it when strictly using Dominican tobacco. I just don't think, like, for my palate. So that's the thing too, right? So I'm
You
drinking.
end up getting too much floral.
Yeah, and it's subjective, obviously. Like, for everybody, it's different. There are folks that love it, and more kudos to them. Keep enjoying it. But for me and my brand, I cook a lot as well. So when I'm using seasonings in the kitchen, I use seasonings from all over. I'm not gonna stick to like, oh, I'm only gonna use Italian or Caribbean based seasonings. I'm all over the map, dude. And that, I think that the same result is what's coming through. It's like, when you're leveraging the Cameroon seed in Ecuador, and you're leveraging, Sumatra seed in Ecuador, and you're leveraging Brazilian tobacco, you know, it comes through, man, and it just gives people that punch. Like, whoa, there's something else here. And especially when you start blending strains of tobacco from different parts of the world, it's a beautiful thing, man.
And then, of course, you're aging. And
Right.
have you run into, when you're dealing with retailers that are signing up for your brand, do you run into any issues with the retailers or the consumers at some of your price points? I mean, I'll just frame this for a second, because
Right.
we just saw the announcement from Altadis, right, where they're coming out with the new Monte Cristo, which is $150 cigar. It's
Right.
$150,
Right.
right? Your cigars are up there in the 20s and so forth, right? So you're up in the Padron level pricing,
Mhm.
okay?
Right. Which is tough for a boutique company, you know, new name. So my justification and my thought process behind that is the following. You know, when I came into this industry, again, I come from the investment world. I'm not here to make a buck, dude. You know, someone very wise and older told me in this that's been in the industry for a long time. In order for you to make a small fortune, you have to throw a big fortune at it.
Yeah, you want
And
to make a million, you got to spend two.
it's right on the money, dude. It's 100% factual. I'll tell you that from experience. But the reason we do it is because we actually love what we're doing here, man. Like we're not just blending cigars and just pumping them out into the ether, hoping that something sticks. You know, we're really, really into this because we really love what we're doing and we're passionate about this. So, and that comes through like the consumers, man. When I go to the shows and I see you guys consuming our cigars and you love them, it just that's what I do it for. That's it, 100%. Like there's no BS. There's no you know, I don't care about like the margins and all this stuff. I do it from a business standpoint to keep the lights on, obviously. But when it comes to the blending process and everything, we leave no stone unturned. We will leverage any expensive tobacco if it calls for it, and it's reflected on the price. So that's
And
exactly what it is.
and
So
and Dr. Gabby Caffey just chimed in, and his comment is spot on. He says, "Hey fellas, Don Doroteo makes some of the finest cigars in the Dominican Republic. The aging, the aging on their tobacco is like no other. The cigars are worth every penny. I've had the privilege of trying their cigars. You can taste the aging of the tobacco. It's like aged rum or aged bourbon. It's going to be more expensive." There you go.
kudos to Dr. Gavin Caffey. He's an OG in the industry. He's doing some very cool things. Also part of the Aurora family, by the way, for those of you out there
Yes,
watching.
he is. Yes,
Uh,
he is now.
and
He's made
and
his
I,
journey. He's made his journey finally and
yeah,
found Mecca. He found his Mecca
yeah.
finally.
The funny thing is, like I used to bother him so much in the beginning. I hope he'd be listening. Sorry for being such a pain in the ass. So the way I approach this is like, you know, I see guys like him and guys like the master blender Manuel Noah, and I look at experience and I'm like, man, that's a gold mine. And so I try to kind of learn anything, any little bit of any little nugget that they're willing to share with me, I'll run with it. And so he was one of the guys that actually gave me the time of day and you know would pick up the phone. I would call him and ask him all these dumb questions. So I really appreciate it, Dr. Gabby. Um, but yeah, man, it's you know, when it comes to the pricing and everything, I know it was going to be an uphill battle because we're a boutique company from a brand awareness perspective, or brand new, right? Even though we've been in the industry technically for over a century, thanks to my grandfather and and his father, my great grandfather. But nonetheless, we're a brand new product. Folks are like, "Who the hell are you? Where do you roll? Like, what's your gig, right?" But you know, when I came into this industry, I said I'm gonna try to do two things, and that's gonna be make good product and try to stay honest with that product. So when it comes to the pricing, I couldn't stomach making a stick the way that we release it and pricing it in fashion that's not relative to the experience you're having. I just don't think things need to be one for one. And so I knew what that meant. That meant to me that sales was going to be a pain, right? The first year we actually launched the one you're smoking right now, Legado, we didn't make any sales in PCA, but that was okay because I ate that cost and I said to myself, we're laying the foundation for this company and it's going to take some pain in the short term, and in the long term, it'll work out, you know. And so we did that, and then when we you just dropped the ash.
There it is. There's the ash. Held solid. Dropped 3
That's all I'm
feet. Held
talking
solid.
about.
Look at the burn cone, folks. This is the signature Stogie Press burn cone I talk about all the time. Centered, beautiful. That's how it's supposed to look when the ash drops. Not off-centered, not raggedy. That it's not a flaky ash. It was a solid ash. I wasn't sitting here and watching flakes coming all over me. These are my pet peeves when I do reviews, because a premium cigar should be a premium product, and yours
Right.
reflects premium quality. You could see every step along the way that you're following as you smoke this cigar. You know you're getting a premium product, and I always enjoyed this craft. From the moment I smoked them at I guess it was a TPE, and then
Yep.
even now it just seemed to get better.
Mm-hmm. And one thing, so when it comes to I'm very meticulous when it comes to these details. So I always tell myself, like, okay, going back to what I was saying, as far as like staying honest, you know, okay, so there's a premium packaged high ultra premium cigar, right? We got that right. The first thing that was bothering me so much was the delivery time. So for the longest time in this industry, I've seen one thing that's my pet peeve. I love ordering from like Amazon, and you get your package in 1 to 2 days. I love it, dude. Like, you need it
That's the
now, you
world we
get it.
live in today. It's instant,
Exactly, exactly, right? And low attention span. So we need the thing now. And so one thing I've really been working on is getting that delivery time down, you know, to the T. So to the point where when folks come to the show at PCA in a couple weeks and they order from us our new blend, they'll have it within the same week. So
Nice.
if you come in on that Saturday, Sunday, you're gonna have your shipment out by Wednesday. That's a guarantee for me. You heard it here. So not what you've seen in the past where you have to wait, you know, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. It's insane. You know, unless you're ordering like a Ferrari or something that's custom made, I don't want to wait 3 months.
Now, what happens
get it.
if this has taken off so well and the word has gotten out now and people start to clamor to you and they put in orders and you get more orders than what you have stock of? Is that a possibility?
I mean, it's always a possibility, but at the end of, at the end of the day,
It's a good problem to have, but
that's a good problem to have. And I'm very resourceful, so I'll find a way. Like, let's say, let's play devil's advocate here. Let's play, you know, hypothetically speaking, if we were to run into a situation where, like, hey, some guy comes to, you know, the booth and he has 10 lounges, whatever. Rocky Patel wants to come and buy. Rocky Patel wants to come and buy us out. You know, first and foremost, here's two things. So I've had folks come to me before and they wanted to buy our entire stock out before. This had really happened. So for Legado, somebody, you know, some high roller was like, hey, I want to buy your entire stock. I want everything. And I said, dude, I love you, but no, I can't do that because two reasons. Number one, from a brand and marketing perspective, my brand is dead. This was at a time where I didn't even have a core line. I only had the Legado. So you take that from me, what do I have left? Nothing.
right.
Number two, and more importantly, what do I say to my customers that took the risk and invested in my company and gave me a shot? You know, what do I say to them? Sorry, like, we're done, we're out. No. So, you know, I you know, respectfully declined that offer 2 times.
And you had the legacy to your grandfather, which is what drives you every day, I'm sure.
Right.
So you're
Right.
respecting that, and you've given that opportunity by a phenomenal mentor in La Aurora. I mean, you just don't. I mean, eventually, you know what? Businesses, a lot of people, I don't know, colleague of mine always told me, he says, businesses are made to be built and sold. That's the only reason you go into business, is to build a business, to sell the business, and then go build another business.
Right.
But doesn't have to be overnight. If you build this, you build it, and you know, and it's hard to let the baby go, right? You don't want to let the baby
for me, I don't know, man. I literally had this conversation with my wife today. You know, she's always asking me, like, so what is your plan? Because you know, in the past, when it comes to like my investment experience, I flip on a dime. Like, if I have to sell a stock, sell out on a company, that I was dedicated to for 2 years. I do it because it's all about numbers. It's a numbers game. That's all it is. It's not relationships. I still have a beer with the founders and say, hey man, you did a great job. But when it comes to this, I have a hard time kind of fathoming the idea of like selling out, as I see it. For me, I want to be, I want to be that OG that's walking through with gray hairs. And I'm saying, I've been in this since I was in my early 30s, and this is my grandfather's legacy, and I'm gonna pass it on to my kids. So
Nice.
that's my goal when it comes to this. I've had this conversation with my founders a couple times, and we've seen some crazy and successful exits for other companies, right, in recent times. And when the conversation comes up, we're always like, that's not us. We're in this for life. So this is like a gang, dude. One way in, one way out. So
Let's shift gears ever so slightly. We're going to talk about marketing. And one of the things that you created this year, which is absolutely phenomenal, we talked about this a little before the show. So this lighter, okay, we'll start with this lighter. It's a beautiful lighter. It's got the butane double flame in it, okay, which is nice because you can always swap it out at any of your other Zippos, but
right.
beautifully made lighter, right? But this came in this. Now, everybody likes cigar cases. I have a drawer full of these cigar cases. This one's not in a drawer. Actually, you could see I've used it. It's already it's getting beat up. I've carried it around with me. But when you open this up, right, we've got Don Doroteo right there. You got the pocket for the lighter. You have this beautiful, unique cutter. Okay, that came with it. And what I really like is when you open this case up, this is not fake leather. This is the real deal. And if you want to store cigars in a case, you want a leather case. And I'll let you explain the reason why. Okay, but I know. Okay. Hold your cigars on the left side. It's a beautiful felty right here. You can feel this. It's just like beautiful cowhide leather. And if I understand correctly, you source this from the Ukraine, which I found very interesting because you were making this when they were having bombs dropped on them.
Yeah, dude.
Tell that story.
That was pretty crazy. So, again, coming from the marketing investment world, when I first came into this industry, the first thing I did was like, okay, once I had the relationship with La Aurora and everything in the cigar side already dialed in, I said from a marketing perspective, and I wanted to build this brand. I started doing some research. So I started curating a list of like, okay, these are the influencers that I want to work with. I jive with their brand, the way they present themselves, all that good stuff, right? So after I had that list done, I was like, okay, what am I going to do? So I started looking at some of the marketing campaigns that I've seen successfully, launch, and the ones that really spoke to me. And I decided, you know what, I'm gonna do something cool, something different. I don't want to just send cigars in a plastic bag. Anyone could do that. Let me go ahead and like make my own case, which is a pain in the ass. Let me tell you. I didn't think it was going to be so difficult, and it was, but it was so awesome. So I just started scouring the internet, looking for manufacturers that were able to make genuine real leather. Obviously, I looked here in the States, and there were some folks that were way above my budget. And it actually was a blessing in disguise because then I started looking overseas in China, Ukraine, as you said, and elsewhere. And come to find out, I found some folks that make even better quality material. And they just went the extra mile when it came to attention to detail, as far as like placing the logos, making sure that any little discrepancy that I had, they would address it immediately. So, for instance, I went through multiple versions of that leather case that you're holding. The initial one was clunky. It had pockets in the wrong place, and I had them completely rewire the entire thing. So they changed the design completely. They made a super custom just for us. And come to find out, when I received the sample, It was, in fact, the same leathery, musty smell. Like it just like a punch in the face. I was like, man, these guys are using the real stuff. They're not using that. You know, if you know anything about leather, it comes in different qualities, um, different classifications, just like diamonds, just like tobacco, just like any other high end product. And you know, they're using the best stuff. And so, you know, immediately I knew I wanted to work with these guys. So I put in an order. And then a couple weeks later, guess what? Russia invades the Ukraine. And so I'm thinking like, oh fuck, you know, this is not going to be good. And these guys are, dude, they earn my respect, like, and you know, through and through. So these guys would hit me up on like these other like uh, messaging boards like Telegram or WhatsApp, and it would say, "I'm sorry, boss, I have to stop now because we are under attack." I'm like, hey man, do what you gotta do, you know, take care of your family, take care of yourself. And they would come back 5 days later and say, hey, we're back, we're working again, we're working on it. And from the moment I placed my order, once we had that design laid out, to the moment I received my package, it was only 3 weeks. So I just said to myself, I'm like, these guys are insane, dude. Like they are working around the clock, just making it happen. So ever since then, I was sold completely, and I said, you know what, I will work with you guys for life. So
Now they're having the privilege of smoking Don Doroteo cigars.
absolutely, of course, that's a must.
That's it. That's it. That I mean, you knocked that one out of the ballpark, just like you knocked the cigars out of the ballpark. I know, like my wife, she's you know, she was a fashion merchandiser in college, and she knows fashion and she knows material and all of that. And when I got that case that I showed it to her, her eyes were like, "That's like some of the best leather I've seen." You know,
That's
so
awesome.
I take her advice for a lot of things. She's spot on. I said, "Yep, yep." And so I carry that with me when I go out. That's the case I use now. You know,
That's
it's a
awesome,
neat
man.
case.
Like funny enough though, like when we first set out to do this, it wasn't about like, hey, let's create another vertical where we can like mass produce leather cases and make a buck off of that. It was purely like me just trying to put as much love into that campaign as possible, finding the right manufacturer to create my vision. And it worked out so well that we said, hey, maybe we should sell this. Because everybody loved it so much. We're like, you know, maybe this is a cool thing to add to our merchandise. So
So
that's honestly how that came about.
let me just pop your website up here for everybody to see. So so you can go to let me just go back to the main page here. So if you go to dondoroteo.com, right? You'll get a whole little video here. It talks about the company, talks about the history, the founders. There's a lot of good knowledge in here. But if you come over to the hamburger menu, you'll find they've got a store located here. Okay, so you can see where their stores are located. So you've got what, about 30, 40, or 50 stores. But if you come back to here and you go to the shop, this is where you can get these cases. Okay, so if you're looking to buy one of these cases, these are like what, $250, and this is worth every penny of that, because you're not going to find a leather case this good, okay, at this price for what it has. And I'm going to go cut it back to Juan and explain briefly the importance of having the cigars in leather. There's a reason for that.
You froze up there for a second. You say it again?
Oh, I said explain to the viewers the reason why you like to have your cigars stored in leather when they're not in your humidor and you're carrying them around, as opposed to plastic and whatever.
Honestly, for me, is I know there's multiple reasons. Obviously, from a um, I guess durability standpoint. So like the leather itself, if you've held our case, you know it's very durable. The flaps themselves, they're pretty thick, and so they preserve the items pretty well. So cigars, as you know, are very delicate, right? You don't want to keep them in a plastic bag. Like I've been carrying my cigars in my bag here as I travel, and if I keep it in my Don D case, I know they're fine. So that's one thing. Another reason is presentation. So when I going back to what I was saying earlier about putting everything into the design and the presentation, it was just really important to me to make sure that whenever I delivered these cigars to all the folks, that you receive them in a way that's like it stands out to you, and it shows that we put a lot of thought into it. Because I think from a subconscious perspective, it really relays the fact that okay, if they're putting this much thought into just the presentation and the case itself, now you're curious about this. Now you want to smoke this and you want to see what this is about. And I think that kind of lends itself to the experience.
I would also say that leather, real leather, helps preserve the moisture content in the cigar. Okay. It's not exactly the same as cedar, but it does help that. Okay. Because it has moisture
To an
content to
extent,
it.
yeah,
And it also kind of imparts a little bit of the leather note into the cigar, which a lot of people like that leather note. So
right,
it imparts a little of that as part of the storage or what you're
right.
doing with it.
So folks in the industry are already predisposed to liking the smell of leather. And it's funny because some of the reviews that I get for the leather case, I don't even care for the leather reviews. I just want you to enjoy it. But they always open them up and they're like, "Oh my God, the smell of musty leather." It's funny because it's some of the notes that they pick up when they're smoking some of their favorite cigars. And so that was kind of like a serendipitous kind of effect. We didn't really plan for that. It just kind of played out that way.
So let's move a little into the personal side of Juan Lugo. So you married, and I think you said you had what, two children?
Three.
Three. You have three children.
Yes.
Boys, girls, mix.
So I have a 6-year-old daughter, and I have twins that are 2.5, boy and girl.
Oh, that ought to be fun when they get older.
Yeah, it's fun right now. So so
At
here's a
least you
fun
can
fact.
tell the difference, you know. You know, sometimes when
Here's
you
a
get
fun.
like identical twins, I have a cousin
No,
that had
no, no.
identical twins, and they have to put the band and everything to know
Oh
which
my
one is
God,
who.
that's funny.
They were that close.
No, they're completely opposites. So my boy looks just like me. He looks Hispanic. He has wavy brown hair, and it's pretty long. It looks like Tarzan right now. And then my daughter looks just like my wife, and my wife is Caucasian, and I call it, she's very fair skinned. So they look complete opposites, and it's awesome, dude. The funny thing is, I started this company when my wife was 7 months pregnant. So
With
my
the
wife is 7 months
twins?
pregnant. Yes, with the twins. So my wife is 7 months pregnant. I come back from an investor trip to Puerto Rico, which is where I met my co-founder in person. So me and him, Brandon, we've been working for years together. We've made many transactions together over the investment side. So that trust was kind of baked into our relationship. And then we get there, and there's a bunch of investors who are sitting in front of the beach, and then he pulls out a case full of cigars, a bunch of good old stuff, a bunch of Cuban stuff. And out of everybody, I was the only one that was like, I got excited and,
Old geeky
I
and
was like, yeah, exactly. And me and him just started, we were like in our own little bubble having a gay old time. And the rest of the folks were just like, oh, whatever, cigars. And so from that moment forward, dude, it was just, set in stone. He kept reminding me throughout the trip, hey, if you want to do something together and want to pursue this, I'm serious. I want to do it. And I'm like, all right, whatever. And then he told me the magical words. He said, I'm willing to go as fast as you're willing to go. He said that to me at the terminal when we were leaving Puerto Rico on our way back to the States. And I said, okay, I don't think you know who you just said that to. 9 months later, we had our first harvest. And I remember we got to the Dominican Republic at like 1 in the morning. He hadn't seen any of it. We got to the Dominican Republic at 1 in the morning, and I just put my hand over him and I said, hey, do you remember when you told me you're willing to go as fast as I'm willing to go? That's yours, buddy. So that was a really awesome moment. And so, yeah, man, from that moment forward, we just kind of ran with it, and it's been amazing. An uphill battle, nonetheless, with the kind of the model that we adopted, but it's been awesome.
It's good. And from a so you're living still in New York?
No, so I currently live in Oregon.
Oh, you live
Just
in
kind of
Oregon now.
adventuring and exploring with my wife here.
Oh,
We've been here for a couple months, just enjoying a small town in the middle of the mountains, in Oregon, where you can ski.
what? You changed your whole outfit.
Oh, man, you killing me.
What?
I'm laughing because I'm in the mountain town. I'm in the middle of nowhere, and I find the one place that has internet, and I'm like, I cannot let Jimmie get pissed off here, so I'm gonna make sure I go to the right place. And
It's
then you
okay.
drop the ball. I'm like, I love this. I love this.
We were just talking briefly about the fact that
Uh,
so you move your wife out there to Oregon. So now the next question is she ready to move to the Dominican with you?
right. So we are Oregon, like for real. And yeah, so I'm working on it, dude. Like, I play the long game. So this summer I'm taking her to the Dominican Republic. We're just gonna do like a whole family vacation. But I strategically pick the spots where I want us to live.
Okay.
I might have her tour the country and like see the spots, beachfront views in Puerto Plata, right by, conveniently right by some perfect, private schools,
Oh, so don't bring her into
and
Tamboril,
the
live
whole
in
nine. So
Tamboril. No living in Tamboril.
it's not gonna happen, bro. Like I married an all-American girl. If there's not a Starbucks within like a 10-minute, 15-minute radius, it's not gonna work.
There you go. There you go. All right. So,
So
but does she at least is she entertaining the fact that she'd like to move down there and take that journey and with the children?
she lived abroad for many years. She lived in Europe for many years during college. So it's really more so trying to give the kids, the best education and yada yada. So I know once I get her to turn that leaf, it will be, smooth sailing from there.
Okay. All right. I think it would be a fun adventure for the children, and they'll learn. I mean, do you teach them at least the oldest one is the oldest girl learning any Spanish?
Yeah, of course, man. Honestly, like people asking me like why I decided to get away from the investment world and do what I'm doing now with Don D. And one of the biggest reasons is that I wanted to make sure that the culture and the legacy didn't die with me. That it's beyond cigars, man. Like Dominican Republic is near and dear to my heart. My family legacy is more than just cigars. That culture that they brought over to the U.S. In the '80s when they migrated to the United States. That's what I don't want. Make sure that like my farm, for instance, my farm for the tobacco company, it's a 3-minute walk from my dad's house. That is intentional. That's with purpose because I want to make sure that when I am working out there and I take a business trip, I take my oldest daughter, I take my twins, they get to walk the fields, they get to go to their grandfather's house, hang out with the grandmother, hang out with all the family, the locals there. That's all with purpose. So it's more so me passing on the cultural legacy than it is a tobacco legacy. The tobacco legacy is just a piece of who we are, if that makes sense.
No,
It's
yeah.
not, when you're in this industry, folks they tend to think that that's all there is. Like there's more to it, and that's where this whole tourism piece comes in. Like I want to show folks the country, show all the amazing historical landmarks and all the fun, amazing things that this country has to offer. Aside from obviously great cigars and factories and whatnot.
So from a Dominican perspective, just on current events, current news of the day, As you know, your neighbor Haiti's having tremendous turmoil right now. It's always been an issue. We had people kind of sneaking in from Haiti into the Dominican. I've been on tours in the past where I've been on a bus and the bus gets pulled over by the police. They come in the bus, they open up the bottom of the bus, they make sure that there's nobody hiding in there from Haiti because they're always, smuggling people in. Is there a bigger fear now that
Right.
migrants are going to try to escape this turmoil in Haiti? How's that country? How's your country dealing with that?
Not at all. So I'll tell you my lens. So my agronomist at my farm right now is a Haitian who's been in the Dominican Republic for 27 years, and he is more knowledgeable than the vast majority of the schmucks that walk the country that are native to the Dominican Republic and have college degrees and went to school are you know agronomists by trade, but when it comes to execution, there's no drive, there's no passion, there's no love for what they do. You know, the vast majority of my employees are from Haiti. And guess what? They love what they do. They love our company and they really care about the outcome of every single harvest to the point where they will call me on a weekend and say, "Hey, Juan, it's really important that we do XYZ and make sure that by Monday we're doing like these guys live and breathe this. So for me, from like I'm a small fry in the country. I'm just a small tobacco farmer in the country. I don't really partake in the politics side of things.